Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to do a quick Friday reads today. I haven't done one of those in a while, largely because my reading schedule has been a little bit, I don't know, messed up recently. That's obviously just my fault. I just have not been able to read as much as I would have liked over these really last month, and so I've definitely slipped and fallen behind on a lot of that. Nevertheless, I have finished two novels that I'd like to talk about for this video, if only briefly. The first is one that I finished up last night, and it's Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove. Now, I finished this up last night, but I've been reading it for basically since the start of the month, and so that I've spent a long time with this book, way longer than I would like to, really, not because I wasn't enjoying myself, but just because I was slacking off on reading so much during that time. That's why I spent so much time with it. I wish I could pretend that it was because I was, I don't know, reading the novel out loud and savoring every word, even though, again, I was enjoying it. But it was largely because I was, derelict of my duties in terms of reading. But nevertheless, I finished this last night, and I also finished just before I started recording Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle. Now, two sort of points before I go forward. The first is that I will be making a reading vlog on this soon. So I shot myself reacting to it as I went along and as I was reading it. So I will be posting that next week, later in the week probably, but that will go up on this channel, and that'll be, you know, how I've done it before, where it'll be completely spoiler-free. This is just going to be some raw, uncut, I'm not going to edit this video or anything like that. Just some initial reactions that I guess I want to just kind of put out there, put on the record before I make a whole, reading vlog about it. And then what'll be nice is once I do that, I can link this video at the end of that reading vlog and say, hey, you know, if you're interested in a spoiler discussion of this book, you can watch this video. So that's what this video will do. I'll talk about this in, you know, a sort of extemporaneous way, without any notes or anything like that, but just from the heart, based on 3 weeks of reading it and, you know, spending time with it, maybe even more than that, just a long time of reading it, and enjoying it, and really kind of living it with it for a bit. And then the second thing, I guess, was that I will be giving this book away. We've always lived in the castle. This will be today's giveaway video, or giveaway book. So if you're interested, there are two things to keep in mind. One, you have to live in the continental United States, unfortunately, and you have to email me. My email is always in the description of my videos, christopherrussellreads@gmail.com. So if you want it, let me know. It's a very nice Penguin Classic Deluxe with the French flaps and the deckled edges, and there's, you know, artwork all over it. There's also these little stamps on it. I don't know who had this before, but they put these little pink bear stamps on them, so that's cute. But if you want this, there's no underlining or notes or anything like that. It's gone through at least 2 owners in its lifetime, and it looks still pretty much brand new. So if you want it, just let me know, and I'd be happy to send it to you. I don't usually make a habit of sending books to people that I don't like. I usually like to only send people books that I do like, because I'd like to say that I can recommend them. Unfortunately, I did not like this book at all, but I'm still giving it away because I know a lot of people do. And if you do like this book, or you're very intrigued by it and you want it, it'll probably be in better hands than if it's in my hands, because I'm not going to do anything else with it. This was not my cup of tea at all, and I get no joy in saying that. And after the day that I just had, I'm not looking to get in an argument about it either. If you disagree with me on that, more power to you. I concede the point. The book's amazing, and you're right. But for me, I just didn't like it. I felt that it was completely repetitive. I thought that the characters were extremely unlikable. I thought that the characters, you know, operated within a very, very, very limited cast of characters, and so because of that, there was never really any reprieve. I was always inside of the same girl's head, and she went through the same thoughts over and over and over again, had the same reactions to things and interactions with the people around her over and over and over again, and it just, was so dull. And I'll tell you, even though this novel was really short, it felt longer than Lonesome Dove did at times for me. I don't like to shit all over books, so I'm going to kind of keep it there, especially because, again, I know that people like this book. But I'll just say that I usually don't stick with books that I don't like. In this case, I did because it was so short, and I just wanted to see if maybe there was going to be some sort of twist at the end, something I didn't see coming, but there wasn't. And especially if this thing is considered a piece of horror, well, it's one man's opinion, but there is paint drying is more scary than this novel was. There is absolutely nothing scary about it. Although I was reading this in bed at night, and I did have a light pointed at the book, and out of the corner of my eye, I did see a bug crawling up my wall. And that did make me jump. So that was certainly a scary moment when I was reading the book. But that had nothing to do with the book. I personally found this to be very dull. I'll leave it there. If you like it, feel free to let me know why in the comments. I think that would be really interesting to read. Maybe I missed something. I don't know. I have more Shirley Jackson on my shelf. I'm looking forward to reading more Shirley Jackson. I've read a couple of her things in the past and actually really liked them. So it's not that I'm writing Shirley Jackson off as an author. I just thought that this was... just as I mentioned, it was just very repetitive to me, and I didn't really like any moment of the book. There was not a single moment that I thought I was really having much of an enjoyment with. The first passage is kind of famous, and it was all right, but other than that, no. But let's get to Lonesome Dove. Lonesome Dove is not what I was expecting at all, and I have been caught flat-footed in that regard twice this year. The first was with not Larry McMurtry, that's him. It was with Robert Penn Warren's All the King's Men. And now we've got Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove. And in both cases, both of those novels were a lot darker, a lot grimmer, a lot grittier, and a lot more depressing than I thought that they were going to be. Although the differences abound between the two in terms of, well, in so many ways. I'm not equating them as novels. I'm saying that from a reading experience standpoint, and I don't know why really in both cases, although I guess I have a little bit more sympathy for my previous sort of misapprehensions in the case of Lonesome Dove, and I'll get to that. But when it came to All the King's Men and Lonesome Dove, I thought that they were going to be much more lighthearted than they ended up being. I thought that they were going to be much more, I don't know, agreeable than they ended up being. I think that's the biggest surprise of this book, is that considering how many people like it and considering how many people have said positive things about it, again, and I mentioned this when I said I was going to be reading this book this month, I was expecting the book to be much more agreeable than it is. I don't know necessarily if there's any sort of syllabus for agreeable books, but, you know, I have a sort of I had a sort of conception in my head that, well, if this amount of people are interested and enjoy the book, and when I say this amount of people, I mean people from all different reading backgrounds. I mean people from all different sides of the internet even, because a lot of those suggestions or positive things that I've heard people say about this book come from the internet, right? So a lot of people come at it from different backgrounds, different reading experiences. They're different types of readers. They are expecting different things from the novel or the books that they read just in general. And I was anticipating the fact that since so many different types of people were saying so many positive things about this book, that it was going to be some sort of interesting, happy medium between a lot of those different things. And not that it was going to be compromised, but that there was going to be some sort of quality about the book that was going to transcend genre in a way that made everybody interested in it. And I suppose that aspect of the book does hold to be true, but it holds to be true in a way that I wasn't expecting. For one, and I should just say up front, that I found the ending of this book to be extremely depressing. Way more depressing than All the King's Men was. I mean, All the King's Men might have been depressing throughout, but at least it had, you know, somewhat of a happy ending. This really doesn't. I was thinking through all of our characters in this novel, and they really don't end up in a better place at the end of the novel than they were at the start of the novel. Really what we see in Lonesome Dove is a lot of characters full of sound and fury, but whose lives signify nothing. They go through life, and many of them are tough, competent, capable, intelligent, and I'm talking about mainly our three rangers, Jake Spoon, Gus, and Captain Call. In the case of those three, they're in some circles legends amongst the sort of ranger community for their escapades with, hunting down Native Americans and rangering and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they get recognized in a bar, or at least there's a photo of them on the bar. They are kind of aging out of it. I don't want to get sidetracked, but obviously they have this sort of, particularly in the case of Call and Gus, really, they have this capacity that a lot of people don't have in the book. They have this amazing ability to survive, to get out of narrow scrapes with death, to be able to get themselves and extricate themselves out of extremely dangerous situations of all different varieties, whether it's natural disasters or man-made problems or anything like that. They're able to do that very effectively and very interestingly throughout the novel. And yet, when it matters the most, they always fail. And I was expecting that the novel was going to, at some point in the novel, any of these characters, just one of them, was going to learn from their mistakes and overcome themselves. And they never do. They never do. And it's tragic to read. It's very, very sad. And it's sad in a way that I think does transcend genre and does transcend Westerns just in general, because the ways that they fail are the ways in which people fail. Whether they're a cowboy or whether they're, I don't know, a stockbroker or somebody who works at the drive-in theater or, whatever. These characters are failing in ways, very human ways, very domestic ways, that I think we all face in our lives, even if we're not driving a cattle from Texas to Montana or whatever. Even if we're not doing that, we see these characters fail in these domestic pursuits so spectacularly. I mean, it is a wonder at how weak a character like Call is. I mean, you see him make decisions and very deftly in a lot of situations organize his crew and maneuver them in difficult situations and get them out of difficult situations, and he knows how to do so many things, and yet when it comes down to it, all of the effort, all of that work is hollow. There's nothing underneath it. There is no structure there. There are no there are no joists to hold it up. It's just rotten underneath. It's this rotten hollowness underneath all of that, because Call fundamentally is a coward. He's a coward when it comes to Maggie, and that description of what he did or didn't do in the case of Maggie was enough to just break my opinion of him right as I was reading it. And then at the end of the book, almost right at the end of the book, when he has a moment to overcome himself, Larry McMurtry writes in basically those terms, exactly those terms, that he can't do it. He can't overcome himself. He is swallowed by his own weakness. He is swallowed by his own inability to be a father to his son, to at all deal with the mistakes that he's made in his past. He just can't do it, and that was tragic. I didn't expect that at all. And I guess that leads me very conveniently to my favorite character in the book. By far, a character who makes me emotional just thinking about her, Clara, who I think is extraordinarily well realized, and she's the character in the novel who is burdened with that vision of knowing how badly these people are basically fucking themselves over and fucking over the people around them. And she sees it. She sees it in every single one of them. She has Call clocked from the minute she sees him. And she knows that about Gus as well. And she knows how these people could overcome themselves. And she's burdened with the knowledge that they never will. And I suppose that was sadder to me than I was expecting, because I thought that they were going to prove her wrong. I thought that they were going to prove her wrong and overcome themselves and be better, and they never did. Despite her pleading with in the case of Call, pleading with Call to be a father to his son. He couldn't do it. He just had to honor his stupid promise to Gus. And that was really sad to read, because it made her a very tragic character, because even though she's stronger than everybody in the book, even though she's, oh my God, so much smarter than everybody in the book, she has to deal with the folly of men. She has to deal with the weakness of the people around her, and she has to know that they could be better, but they won't be. They just won't. And she has to watch that over and over and over again. And it was just devastating. It's just devastating. So, and I guess that leads me to my favorite moment in the book, which I suppose might be peculiar to me, because I doubt anybody else would really narrow in on this moment as being their favorite. But to me, it stuck out so wonderfully, which was when July Johnson, who was the thorn in my side throughout the whole book. Not the whole book, but especially near the end, where he is just failing again and again and again to realize what he needs to do, to realize the situation that he's in. And it was just driving me crazy. And there's that moment when he asks her to marry him. And he just, sort of whimperingly, pathetically goes, would you marry me if I asked you to? And at the time, she's mixing cake batter in a bowl. And, she hears his question, and she dips her finger in the cake batter and then offers it to him and says, let me know what you think about this. I think I added too much sugar or too much cinnamon. And he's like looking at her all baffled and stupid and confused, and there's drool hanging off his lip and his knuckles are dragging on the floor. Maybe that's just how I imagine him. But he's, all confused as to what she's talking about, and he's about to repeat himself. And of course, she's way too smart for that. She reads his mind instantly and goes, you don't have to repeat the question. What do you think about this cake batter? Do you think I added too much cinnamon? And again, cut to him being completely confused, drooling out of his mouth, knuckles dragging on the floor, and he still doesn't know what's going on, and so he gingerly reaches up and sort of scoops a little bit of the batter off of her finger, and then tries it himself and goes, well, I think it tastes pretty good. And then she goes, I don't think you're a very good judge of sweet things. And he still doesn't get it. After that scene, he still doesn't get it, because he's too thick, he's too much of a blockhead, and he's too weak to realize what's going on. And then after that, which, by the way, that's my favorite moment in the novel, because I think, one, it was supremely well conceived and executed, and two, it speaks to a level of communication that I think all books and really all language strives for in some sense. And I don't want to, last video I went all literary theory on you. I don't want to do that now. But if you're sort of shattering the ways in which we typically communicate, to communicate on a deeper, more even primal level, you could say, by dipping your finger in cake batter and seeing if somebody is capable of knowing what you're saying with that gesture, knowing and reading what it is that you're expecting in that moment. That's the type of communication that I think all great literature strives for. I mean, in a certain sense. And again, I don't want to get too carried away in the melodrama of it, but a moment like that where so much is left unsaid, but everything that needed to be said is said explicitly, is, I think, astoundingly brilliant. And the same thing can be said with the metaphor, the very obvious symbolism of the bull, that Texas bull fighting the bear that the crew comes across. And you can just see that this is, I'm reading it on the edge of my seat, not because I care about this bull. I must have missed it. I didn't even remember that there was a bull involved in this. I mean, I guess it makes sense. But now all of a sudden I'm absolutely at the edge of my seat, because I know that or at least I thought at the time, like, this is going to tell you how the novel is going to end. And it did. And I just didn't realize the extent to which that was going to be the case, because obviously the bull is ripped up. I mean, chunks of its flesh are ripped off of it, and then right after that, Gus dies, and Dietz dies, and all of these great characters are gone, and you know, there's just tragedy after tragedy. But the bull doesn't die, it's just severely wounded, and it spends the rest of its journey just angry and mean, and everybody kind of wants to kill it. And that's really kind of how the novel ends, as a story. But got sidetracked. What I was going to do was pull up a moment after July Johnson asked Clara to marry him, and of course she doesn't say yes or no. She just gives him that test, which of course he fails. And then later on, after some events in the book, I guess, she goes, he walks up to her and says, would you ever marry me? You never said. And then she goes, no, and I'm not about to say now. Ask me in a year. Why in a year? Because you deserve to suffer for a year. I've suffered a year's worth just last night, and I guess you were lying at your ease, dreaming of our wedding night. Jake had no reply. He had never known a woman who spoke so boldly. He looked at her through the fog, wishing she would at least take the coat. The cold made goosebumps on her wrists. I mean, he starts to realize that he made a big mistake by not going in and comforting her in a moment when she needed help. But nevertheless, that line about you deserve to suffer for a year because of my one bad night really, really hit me quite hard, because you can tell that she's right in that. I mean, she has had the death of 3 sons on her hands. She knows she's just going through a level of pain that I think a lot of the characters in the book cannot conceptualize, not just because she's lost so many people, but again, she is also so much wiser than all of the people around her, so much smarter than all of the people around her, and she has to watch them make mistake after mistake after mistake, and it just makes her character just so tragic and sad to think about. But also very admirable too. She isn't sad because she's not living up to her potential. She's sad because nobody else is, and she has no way. All she can do is beg. All she can do is plead and ask people to be better than they are, and they never are. And I found that to be very, very moving. So anyway, should I leave it there? I think I'm going to leave it there. We've been going for 22 minutes. I'm going to have more thoughts, more to say about the book as I continue to marinate with it, as I sort of edit together a reading vlog of it, and I will send this to anybody who is interested in it. So that'll be it for me today. Thank you, BookTube.